Hi.
Everybody, it's Trucks.
Hey.
We are well into Season 2 of Trucks now.
Yeah, we decided arbitrarily that this would be Season 2 of Trucks. This is a journey to Ween.
We're journeying to Ween, and we are taking...
Sugar.
Yes, we are taking an entire truck's worth of sugar, which is appropriate because the subject of today's Trucks is...
cartoons!
Yes, and in particular, Steven Universe.
Well, yeah, I
guess. Adventure Time.
And Adventure Time. And you made me watch a bunch of things to prepare for this, because our new philosophy is be prepared.
Yes, we're actually going to have seen the thing that we're talking about.
Yeah.
We're going to have both seen the thing that we're talking about, and we might even have thought about the thing that we're talking about.
Yeah, or tried to avoid having conversations beforehand so we could actually have things to say.
Yeah, we might possibly done a little research. This is part of our ongoing effort to bring you a more professional product.
Yes.
And in light of that, we're not going to spend all of this time talking about inside baseball as we usually would.
Well, it's important for them to know that we're going to be less shitty now.
It's important for them to know that we're trying.
Yes.
Right? I mean, in many senses of the word. But
anyway,
in particular, that we're trying to do better for you because we care.
Yes. Leave us a comment. Anyway.
Like and subscribe.
Yes. Oh my god. Okay. Anyway. It's come up before that we both really like Adventure Time.
We both do really like Adventure Time. It's one of the cornerstone things that we have in common as two groups of people.
Right.
Like Josh likes sort of Brazilian bolero music.
True.
I like being kicked in the nuts. And
untrue.
Yeah, as far as you know.
Well,
we don't share our bedroom habits. But we both like Adventure Time, which is in some way a synergy of bolero music and being kicked in the nuts.
I'm not going to try to follow that.
I love this wall. It's so delirious. Oh, that was confusing.
Screw it. Let's just be white guy podcasters and talk about Hotline Miami.
What?
No, anyway.
What? No.
Anyway.
Right.
I have not been keeping up with Adventure Time lately, but in preparation for this, I watched a few episodes, and it seems to be as good as it's ever been. It's a perfectly great show. Still digging that shit. But it vexes me somewhat.
It vexes him
that most of the Adventure Time fandom
seems
at least as far as my puny eyes can see,
the ones that we are in contact with.
Yes,
it seems to have drained away a little bit.
Yeah,
you don't see a lot of Adventure Time stuff on the old tumbles anymore.
No,
and a lot of that attention has gone to Steven Universe.
Yeah,
which leads us to a couple of thoughts.
Why am I drifting to the left?
Because
look at this.
It's a truck.
My guy just wants to see what's over there.
Yeah. Look out the window. Yeah, is a problem. Got to pop some pills. Got to pay attention. So here's the deal, right?
Yeah.
The moving of attention away from Adventure Time and towards Steven Universe and to various other cartoon shows corresponds vaguely with Rebecca Sugar leaving Adventure Time and migrating over to start her own show.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that Rebecca Sugar brought to Adventure Times was twofold.
Yes.
She brought feels, and she brought shocking revelations.
And songs.
And songs.
Yeah.
But I think that the key, I mean, the song, don't get me wrong.
That's her particular
recipe. We love
recipe.
the songs.
Yes.
But I think that things in particular that make the show's fandom fodder are A, the feels, and B, the shock and revelations. Now, we are at a point. Just this last week, we had 2 different season finales for 2 different shows that have sizable followings, both of which had shocking revelations in their finales, which had been carefully plotted out. The trails of breadcrumbs had been laid.
Mm-hmm. The other one you're talking about is
Gravity Falls.
Right.
And
I saw that episode. I didn't realize it was a season finale.
That wasn't the season finale.
Oh.
I didn't have you watch the season finale.
Okay. It did seem like a revelation.
Yeah, it was one of a series of revelations.
I watched the one where, spoiler alert, we're going to spoil most of these shows. Spoiler alert.
I think so.
The hick dude who turned out to be the professor. We watched the one where Ice King turned out to have a tragic past.
Yeah, essentially. Old Man McGucket, except Old Man McGucket is no Ice King. But
right.
The point that I'm trying to get at here is that there seems to be a very specific recipe of things that get like large amounts of people on board in the sort of vague demographic that is like Tumblr fandom.
Mm-hmm.
And that corresponds not directly with, and sort of oddly, with a bunch of other potential audiences for cartoons.
Yeah.
Like, there's the fandom audience for cartoons, which is, like, sort of feels anime-y in the way it's construed and sort of has its roots in anime fandom.
Right. Steven Universe representing that.
Yeah. And then there is the adult sort of TV fan audience.
Yes.
Who appreciate animated cartoons because there's some really good work in terms of like episodic television being done these days.
In animated Adventure Time kind of
in animated cartoons. And then there's the actual children that these shows are made for.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to tell these days which audiences are being
catered
addressed
to more
at which times.
Yeah.
And so like this is there's an element of some confusion in this for me. Back in the day, you watch a Saturday morning cartoon, it's pretty clear there's a formula.
Yeah.
And that formula is that it's mostly a kids show. And by kids show, let's define what we mean by a kids show for a start. By kids show we mean that like there's a plot. Like there's an adventure that has gone on, some sort of misadventure that usually just takes up one episode. There are some shows that have continuity, but generally it's if it does have continuity.
If you're a kid, you're not really watching this show in order. Generally, the continuity is just kind of.
But if it does have continuity, it's like super YA kind of continuity. Like there's a villain, and it's a long sort of. It's kind of Transformers continuity. It's a long series of episodes and a struggle between heroes and villains.
Sure.
And if it's comedy, it's there's a bunch of wacky sort of there's explosions and farts and there's like a couple of jokes that are shoved in there for the parents. There's a bunch of references probably that the kids aren't going to get.
Maybe Rocko's Modern Life.
Yeah, maybe they grow up and they get them, but it's obvious that it's not there for the parents to watch.
Right.
It's there so that the parents don't get bored stiff when they're up on a Saturday morning with their kids watching the cartoons. And this was sort of the deal for ages, and also is kind of the model that underlies animated movies for children. Is wacky fun hijinks for the kids, like pop culture references for the grown-ups.
Not my best truck driving today.
No, but then again, it's not going to be until you get back in the groove. This is season 2, man. Teething troubles. We're making our way slowly. But then you get something like Adventure Time, right? Which in its first couple seasons, definitely sort of more the kids. Yeah. A kids show with some weird shit.
Pretty typical stuff
in it,
with a promising premise. But.
Yeah. And then you got into the sort of what I'm going to call the Rebecca Sugar era of the show, where it became more anime-y.
Yes.
And sort of more feels and plot heavy.
Yeah.
And now it's something else. And you take an episode like The Mountain, which we just watched.
Yes. Go watch that.
And it's hard. You would be hard pressed to tell if it wasn't a cartoon that this was a show that was intended for children.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah, big time. Although I'm convinced that I would have loved that episode as a kid.
Absolutely. I mean, this sort of gets us into like the kids' entertainment versus entertainment kids enjoy.
Before we go into this episode too much, we should probably briefly explain at least its atmosphere.
It's like. It's about enlightenment and transcending your physical form, and it's like heavily allegorical stuff featuring this character who is just like a really heavy character to have for a kids show anyway, who's just this like deeply disturbed, neurotic.
You might know it as the one where Lemongrab goes on a spirit journey.
Yeah.
But it's just so dense with images of philosophical portent and certain like deep like stabs at these characters' spiritual lives.
It's the producer Jesse Moynihan like talking to himself basically, just sort of kind of got high, and I not actually, but like definitely thinking about issues of metaphysical portent.
Yes.
And a lot of really vague abstract imagery, and it's like it seems like the show might potentially be trying to pass this off as like wacky non sequiturs,
right?
But there really isn't an element of that anymore. They're not even wacky, really. They're kind of more distressing and awful.
Yes.
So
that's an episode basically for grown-ups, and it's I think it's clear to Adventure Time's producers at this point that its audience is in large part like these internet fans of the show.
Well, like maybe it's like as we said before, a lot of the internet fandom of the show appears to have moved elsewhere, right. And so but there's a big adults.
I would say they're at a
fan
point.
Base of the show who started watching the show with their kids.
Sure.
But I want to use this like to talk about what do we mean when we say kids entertainment, because when we say kids entertainment, we are not talking about entertainment that is exclusively consumed by children in a lot of cases.
True.
Like the biggest juggernaut cultural, levelers of the last 20 years have been Harry Potter and Twilight, right? Which are not for grown-ups.
No.
Like, not exclusively for grown-ups. They're YA fiction. They're targeted at teenagers, and like even though masses and masses and masses of grown-ups read them, and watch the movies, you can tell tonally that they're not meant to be serious.
Right.
And that's sort of what...
Until towards the end, I suppose, of Harry Potter.
But, but it's still like,
Yeah, it's still like a certain... comic... Well, not comic mischief, but it's actually a bit hard to pin down exactly what makes it relatively light while being, like, apocalyptic super and bloody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's... I think... trying to put my finger on it.
Yeah.
It's that entertainment for kids is unashamedly tropey. It's there are these. It follows these story forms. It's meant to think about like good and evil. It's meant to think about like it's there's sort of like this very blurry line between kids fiction and genre fiction, and like. A lot of the YA, if you look at a YA bookshelf these days, I mean, it is full of covers that look like absolutely fucking terrifying. There's a lot of really serious romance novel shit going on in YA right now, and it's like,
I guess
the distinction between like a genre novel for adults and a genre novel for kids can be just like all the characters are going to have sex or not, and maybe they'll be having more sex in the YA. It's sort of hard to tell at this point.
I guess to dial it back and maybe overthink it a little less, there's a fairly obvious common ingredient between these things, which is that even if it's an apocalyptic war for existence, it's usually that's all kind of the backdrop of the central coming of age arc, right? In most cases.
So kids shows are kids shows, and then they star characters who are kids.
I'm not trying to say that that's the foundational
like
principle.
The Tin Drum.
I mean, a lot of adult things star kids, but I would,
The Omen. But yes, I know what you're saying.
I would say that it's it's common to see that these things are kind of used as a way to explore how to deal with becoming an adult.
Sure, but not always. Like
right.
like Animaniacs is not about being grown up and being an adult.
Yeah, I mean, here I'm talking about YA fiction.
YA fiction, right? All these gradations, man.
Yeah, I mean, kids stuff is just... does it have colors? Can I park my kids in front of it?
Right.
Will it hold their attention?
It's like things that will hold a child's attention.
Right.
But once again... But
Citizen Kane is not one of them.
As we said, but also as we said, like, as children, you and I might have really dug something like that. I mean...
Right, and it is a children's show.
There's a lot of colors and action there.
Yeah. I think that succeeds at being children's entertainment. The Mountain, even if the substance of it is only going to be visible to adults.
So substance is the next issue, right?
Don't even try it.
He fucking tried it and he succeeded.
He damaged the sugar.
No, Rebecca. So we are like. So we're establishing here that like thematic depth is kind of agnostic to whether things are supposed to be for kids or for adults.
Yeah.
In some levels, I mean, there are obviously certain like themes that are going to be of more interest to grown-ups.
Right.
But like, there's not necessarily more or less complexity to be had in entertainment.
I mean, the classic puzzle box here is the Catcher in the Rye, which is a story about a young man becoming an adult, and you couldn't really get people to agree on whether or not that qualifies as proto-YA fiction, because it was written before YA was a thing.
Yeah, but it clearly is.
It is, yes, but it also, like, undeniably has high-reaching literary ambition.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, this is an example of why these two things are in no way anathema to one another.
Right.
But in another way, like, you don't see YA quite reach that high most of the time.
This is true. I mean, well, it's the sort of thing where it's like, a reason that I bring this up is that when I'm looking at the way that fandom construes these things, there's often like this feeling of not among Tumblr fandom, but say among like the AV Club,
right? Like
among the adult fans of these shows.
And it should be said here that even like the literary canon is a fandom.
Yeah.
In the terms we're using.
Absolutely. There's this concern about being seen as being childish.
Right.
That there is this idea that if for something to be worthy, it must be difficult
yeah.
or boring.
Yeah. Or innovative in some way.
Right. And like I rarely see that brooded about anymore. We kind of like Glenn Weldon has who from Pop Culture Happy Hour has this shorthand for what he calls like POW BAM articles where the prototypical headline is POW ZAP comic books aren't just for kids anymore. And we've got that almost worked out of our system, right? And like as video game fans, this is something that we can that we're intimately familiar with.
Oh yes.
Is that I think for the most part, culture is on board with treating YA stuff, video games, comics, blah blah blah, is not necessarily is like that comics and video games aren't necessarily for kids, but B, that stuff that's for kids is not necessarily
right.
thematically useless or like unworthy of being construed as art. But I think that there's still a lot of inbuilt backlash against that idea, and that people want their cartoons to be serious business.
Right. The Teen Titans thing is the kind of the case in point here.
Yeah. So if you're not familiar, Teen Titans was a kids show.
Yeah.
Teen Titans was a kids show that starred comic book characters in a comic book universe who were teenagers. It was textbook YA.
Right.
It was like
they were dealing with teenage problems.
Yeah, yeah.
There was some tumult, some romance angst, those kinds of things.
Exactly, but the tone was quite light throughout.
Yes.
Then they rebooted it.
Right.
Cartoon Network, or was it Cartoon Network? It was
yes,
it was Cartoon Network. Rebooted it, and it became Teen Titans Go, which is a kids show.
Right.
Again, a kids show. Which is about the same characters, except they're now super deformed, wacky characters.
Seemingly for a younger demographic.
But
yes,
the show is better now than it was. And if you say that, people get so mad.
Right. For me, I feel nothing. I don't care for either show.
You don't care. He doesn't care for either show, and like I'm not gonna like go back as either show for being. But super meaningful.
You would say that it's funny now, where previously it was.
Previously, it was an uneasy mix of tones.
Mm-hmm.
It's tight now, and it has a higher budget now, where it used to be sort of weirdly melismatic. It like mushy,
right?
And it's also not pretending to be deep.
Okay.
Which is like which is a problem that YA literature has, because teenagers want to be deep.
Yeah.
and is the enemy of real deepness, or an enemy of real deepness. Which, see also Catcher in the Rye, incidentally.
I think that book is interesting for its formal innovations.
Maybe next Treks we talk about Salinger. Have a big old disagreement about Salinger.
Yeah, that would be good.
I'll be like, he's creepy.
I'd be like, agreed. So many literature stars are creepy. But anyway,
I know. It's like Nabokov at least knows who's creepy. Salinger doesn't.
Back to Teen Titans. Anyway. There is something to be said here, right? Like, those characters, I don't care about them, but they meant things to people.
Right, they did.
Like, people related to, I guess, Starfire feeling like an alien, or to Raven being shut off feelings-wise.
Yep.
And like they learned things from these characters about themselves and grew those attachments, and to see them become, joke dispensers.
Yeah, to see them become caricatures of themselves.
Yes, I can see how that would be a bit painful.
Perhaps upsetting.
It brings to mind the Flanderization of The Simpsons, in a way.
Yeah, but absolutely intentional and
certainly
and construed as such. But I think this is one of those things where it's like the narrative they choose to latch onto to express that frustration, which is that this show used to be serious and is now kid stuff.
Right.
Is completely misses the points that it was kid stuff, and that's why you care about it. Because it was kid stuff for you when you were a kid.
Right.
Or in the worst case scenario, it was kid stuff for you when you were a
this is becoming
creepy
one of those situations we
man-child. Yes.
Well, whatever. That gives us plenty of time to talk about this.
Yeah. So, I'm my sympathy here will always be with the unsentimental. Like, when a show changes, and this is also about Adventure Time, like, when a show changes, I want to be on board. If that change is not, if that change is not, fatigue.
Yeah.
If that change is not late. Like, you get 6 seasons into something, if you're still trying to do the same thing that you used to be trying to do, you get,
right.
The Simpsons happens.
Sure.
You get something which it begins to offer diminishing returns. So, even though these transformations can be...
honk, honk.
Even though these transformations can be bad, or disastrous occasionally, I much prefer to see something change than to see something stagnate.
Yeah.
Just, to keep the people who are fucking working on it interested, because if they're interested, it's going to be a better product.
True.
But that's sort of, we're getting a little further afield here.
As far as why people have let go of Adventure Time to an extent, that's not why at all, right? Something stranger has happened there.
Yeah.
I have seen people say that Adventure Time has kind of fallen off, and I just can't agree. So it kind of leads me to wonder how that has become the conventional wisdom, that Adventure Time is past its prime.
I think it really is that it's just not doing the particular thing that they want out of Adventure Time anymore.
Right. But if anything, it's become more mature. It feels a little uncharitable to say that audiences that were at one time into Adventure Time just haven't been able to keep up with it. But is that where we're going here?
I don't think so. I think that it's a matter of audiences who were once into Adventure Time liked a particular thing that Adventure Time did, and when Adventure Time no longer really focused on doing that.
Yes. So we are the nerds here. We're the people who weren't just invested in the fiction of the show, but we were becoming interested in the forces behind the show, and have become interested in their development as almost as much, if not more, than the characters themselves.
Right. I'm kind of I'm in the fandom of specific storyboard artists,
right.
For the show rather than any of the characters. I mean, and this is just as a general matter something that's true for me for pretty much anything that I get interested in, because
same.
As I'm interested in art that does new stuff, and then I'm interested in what the process was that created that new stuff.
Yeah.
But Adventure Time has done some episodes this last season where they basically just they took like plot that had been building up and building up and building up and just sort of drop kicked it within one episode. Jesse Moynihan is loves to do this. He will obliterate like a season's worth of stuff in 12 minutes and then just go, all right, what's next?
Yeah.
And that's because he's not interested in that stuff.
Right. That's the impetus for storytelling, not the story itself.
Right. He's not interested in revelations. The fandom love revelations, as we've seen with these last couple of things. Yes. They love secrets. They love theories.
And this is why Steven Universe is popular.
Yeah, because it's Steven Universe. By the way, I mean we're going
to have an extended conversation about that show once we're done with all this other stuff.
Yeah, because I really, really, really like Steven Universe. The whole impetus for this, which we've spent mostly just talking shit, is me really enjoying Steven Universe because it's done a masterful job of slow rolling out this complicated sci-fi universe that it's in, and this is doing the project that Adventure Time was sort of doing with the world building and this and that, and it's doing it better than Adventure Time did because it's focused on it as its primary thing, whereas Adventure Time, as the name would suggest, is all about different artists going on different adventures and using these characters to investigate different things they're interested in,
which is neither better nor
vision.
Worse.
No, it's just different
as a direction.
It's like I see people complaining about Adventure Time isn't doing thing X anymore, and I'm like, that's not. It was at no point did they sign an agreement saying that that's what the show was about.
Right.
It
was a different thing than that at first, even.
Yeah. And luckily, this creator who was in large part...
Right, if that's what you liked in Adventure Time, that lady has a show now,
and
that's why you're watching it, and not Adventure Time. Why are we explaining this to you?
Right, we're explaining it to ourselves.
Yes.
Adventure Time is a fucking cash juggernaut, so it's not like it's going anywhere, and Cartoon Network does not seem to be doing anything to hamper the creativity of...
What the hell is this? Oh, it's the radio player. Did you know that there was one of these? We can tune into real-life European radio stations if we weren't too busy talking.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll press the correct button now.
Thank you.
Yeah, where were we?
Where the fuck were we? Jesus Christ, that radio just fucked me up.
It fucked me up too.
Yeah, but there's the stuff, Cartoon Network isn't touching Adventure Time because it's made them a bazillion fucking dollars.
Right.
And it's like with The Simpsons, they could just keep going forever and it really doesn't matter what it actually is doing.
Yeah.
And so we are going to get a lot more weird stuff, I hope. It's going to be great.
Yeah. I really recommend, if you've fallen off the Adventure Time wagon, to try and check it out again. It's
the episode quality is widely variable.
Kind of adjust your expectations to until you are ready to accept that it's just going to be new.
Yeah, and this is a lab. People are going to do interesting new stuff.
Yeah.
And some of it's going to be wildly successful, and some of it's going to be kind of boring, and some of it's just going to be weird.
Right.
And that's the way we like it.
But if you like Steven Universe, that's awesome too, because kind of a cool show. I recently checked it out for the first time in prep for this episode. I kind of got a scatter shot of from the beginning to the end, of the first season. Kind of I guess you could say that I saw one just goofy episode, no, two goofy episodes, and a bunch of plot heavy things.
Yep.
And I'm actually not sure what the distribution is of those things in the show as a whole.
Pretty even.
Yeah.
I would say.
But it does that trick, right? That the premise of this show is laid out very cleverly to be a show which delivers feels. I mean, it seems like what is basically happening in this show is that the title character has been recently inducted via cosmic means beyond his grasp into this team of magical girl superheroes.
Yep.
And but he isn't as cool as them. They've all been around for thousands of years, and he's just this dopey kid who doesn't even know how to handle his powers, let alone know the history of them or even the extent of what he can do. And the result of this is that he's always getting left behind when they go on a cool mission. He just has to stay home and play his video game.
Yeah, well, he stops getting left behind almost immediately, but that's sort of where it starts, yeah.
Okay, well, from at least to discuss how that affects the beginning of the show, it kind of creates this this symmetry between Steven Universe and the viewer, because the viewer is also being left behind.
Huh.
And this kind of instantly gets our envy going, right?
Right.
We want to see this cool stuff because we get little tastes of it.
Yep.
And it's great. But we are tethered to Steven, and even after he is going on the missions, he's still the third wheel.
Mm.
And we're still kind of there with him because we don't understand all of the stakes or all of the mechanisms.
Yeah.
And this, like, as I said, it's a show about feels, and I think you can see how this kind of begins to create that situation, because it ends up being such that, like, every single time we learn a new piece of information, it's coupled with a big emotional payoff.
Yeah.
Like, it's tied to Steven's mom, or his relationships with his friends, or, like, truths that they had been keeping to themselves. Like, personal truths. It knows how to make everything very, very personal. And, where am I going? Help me.
To the right.
No, I know that.
Take the exit, Josh. You were saying I think that you're talking about the very clever way in which information is portioned out sort of piecemeal over the course of the
situation
series.
This creates is that even when shit is really light, it carries a low-level emotional charge.
Yeah, and things can swing into very quickly.
And even the fucking theme song for the show embodies this, because that theme song is about 15 seconds long, but it modulates between major and minor keys twice in those 15 seconds, and Steven's voice does that little quaver when he sings, and if you think we can't, this show is priming you into that emotionally fraught state, so that even when they're just sitting around watching fucking horror movies, you're ready for someone to cry, because someone's gonna cry every single goddamn episode. And this works for me, right?
But he doesn't like that it works for him.
I've had history with this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's I can gobble it up like candy, and I will, just marathon this fucking thing. But afterwards, it just leaves me feeling destitute. You know what I mean?
Like a cheap prostitute. If you feel used.
Yeah, kind of. It's I think the central emotion that this thing uses as leverage is envy, right? Because
that's interesting.
Because, and this is an old thing that I've written about in the past, is that when you get attached to fictional characters, something which is central to it, or at least for me, is envy, because they, in a show like this especially, but even in other things, even in Waiting for Godot, a show about a play about how absurd and meaningless life is. Series. Even those characters in that absurdist play have a structural framework governing their existence.
Yeah.
They have a reason to exist, and when you couple that with every day being a new adventure and having this incredible emotional payoff, and you're learning to deepen your friendships and your relationship with yourself all the time.
For those of us who are isolated and sad,
well, no.
it looks like a window into a beautiful different world.
I think it has a way of making everybody feel isolated and sad. I think
Are these the feels that people have when they watch this show?
Jealousy,
isolation.
I don't want to speak for anyone besides myself, but I do think that there's an element of this. I feel like I have a decent life. I like my friends, and I like my girlfriend, and I like a lot of people around here. But it's still
a disclaimer, ladies.
It's still when you watch a show like this, it's this very beautiful and impossible vision.
Yeah, I feel like this. I identify what you're getting at here, and Steven Universe doesn't do this to me because the particular things that it's peddling are not things that I find are not whatever the hole in me is looking to be filled with. But there are definitely comics that I follow which are just mostly stuff about being a well-adjusted high school or college student, which I definitely wasn't. And I read them and I'm like, oh my god, I'll never get this life, and kind of shovel it in and then feel a little empty in the sort of in that junk foodie way.
Mm-hmm.
Is that am I sort of it's not quite the same thing.
It's a similar thing. It's not that I want my life to be Steven Universe, because I don't.
Right.
But it's just the depth and breadth of feeling that these characters get to experience outside of any, like, agnostic to any particular situations that they're going through.
Mm. Yeah. No, it's the feeling of being engaged. Yeah, and also, like, Steven is kind of an incredible character in a way, because, like, we were talking with our friend Nick, who he likes the Civil War, who was talking about, like, Our friend Nick, like, doesn't get Adventure Time, like, on a deep level doesn't get Adventure Time, and one of the reasons that he doesn't get Adventure Time is because he can't really relate to Finn, because Finn is never hapless. We're not saying that Nick is hapless, but what he demands from his protagonists is a little bit of a schmuck. He's a big Looney Tunes guy. He likes to see people fall on their face, and and Finn is like, the hero forever. And Steven has this, like, thing where he is also, where, like Finn, he's a deeply good person.
Yeah.
But unlike Finn, he's not complicated about it. Finn has this, Finn has his memory hole, and Finn has, like, Finn is this weird composite kind of a dude in a way, but Steven is both very honest, very emotional, and, like, just a very, very good human being.
Right.
And, like, as such, is not a character who you see very often.
And it's a tension that every episode kind of plays with, that what are their fucking names? Amethyst and Garnet. No, Amethyst and Pearl are like always kind of skeptical of Steven. I mean, they like him, but they aren't so ready to take him seriously all the time.
Right.
But Garnet, the stoic one, like, of all people, is, like, always ready to encourage him. And, like, the episode kind of teases that out that way.
Yeah, it's sort of it's like, it's all about them learning to believe in Steven, which rhymes and is a thing that is said, I think, at some point. A good heart.
Yeah.
And that is it is a very, if you're like an inhuman cipher like Josh or I, it is kind of a lovely thing to watch.
But I do have trouble. I mean, I enjoy these shows, and Steven Universe is full of stuff that I engage with. For the reasons I've described, I have trouble engaging with this whole show solely for these feels-related reasons.
I need. Well, here's the thing, right? So we've kind of set up this dichotomy where Adventure Time is brainy and Steven Universe is hearty.
To an extent, I think there's truth to that.
And people say that, like, Adventure Time is a shonen show and Steven Universe is a shoujo show.
What does that mean?
That it's a boys' anime versus a girls' anime. It's basically that there's a lot of coding of Adventure Time as masculine and Steven Universe is feminine. And this is partially just because the vast majority of the characters in Adventure Time, well, not the majority, but the majority of the main characters in Adventure Time are male, the majority of the main characters in Steven Universe are female, the show's creators are male and female, respectively. And Steven Universe is way more about emotions, and particularly recently, Adventure Time is way more about cerebral shit.
Right. True enough.
And, like, it's also said that, like, I've heard people say that Adventure Time is a show with a heavily female fan base, and Steven Universe is a show with a heavily male fan base. But I haven't actually seen anything that
proves that,
confirms that in any way. I don't really know either of the, like, when we talk about the fandom for a show like Adventure Time, it gets really complicated anyway. So I don't know whether there's any truth to that. But I want to point that out, but I don't want to give into it completely. It's a kind of it's a simplification, because both shows are made by teams of men and women.
Yes.
And B, both shows have gut punch moments of nastiness.
Right.
Or they're definitely not reducible to that sort of tropiness.
But I think, like kind of just bracketing all that.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that in general, the objective of Steven Universe is to cause feelings, and in general, the objective of Adventure Time is to kind of say, look what I can do.
Look what we can do. Yeah,
right.
Like, check this out. Isn't this cool?
Yeah, like, look at this freshness we got.
And Steven Universe is not devoid of, hey, check out this freshness.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, one thing I enjoy a lot in both shows is the way they have taken video game coding on board. Steven Universe has a different way from doing it as Adventure Time. I've kind of observed that a lot of scenes in Steven Universe are accompanied by, like, the kind of music you would hear in like a town section in a Japanese RPG.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's
reading a lot of dialogue and listening to this catchy.
It's hella anime. The show.
Excuse me.
Oh my god! Oh Jesus!
I just decided I wanted to beat him.
You didn't.
I went for it.
You didn't.
Oh, I'm sure I'm alive. I don't think he is. Look at him. There's a stop sign on top of his.
Oh god, murder! All right, we just murdered the guy.
Truck versus Mini Cooper. All right, where were we?
I was about to say that Steven Universe. One of the things that I like about Steven Universe, which you may or may not have access to, is that it is absolutely chock fucking full of anime references.
Yeah, I've counted a few of them.
There's a series. There's an episode involving Pearl sword fighting with a kind of a training robot double.
Oh, I can already see where that's about to reference.
Oh yeah, it's shot for shot Utena sword fighting, and like it's heavily coded with that kind of stuff, which appeals to me. But and that's part of the sort of the like the nerd cred of it. But it's also like like the fight scenes in this show are really well choreographed, and like very action oriented, and it's not an afterthought. You know?
Yeah. I mean, that's like a martial arts movie thing.
Mm-hmm. And this latest two-part finale.
Fighting is to express feelings.
Right. And this two-part finale, and it really is in this show. And this two-part finale, which just happened, which is amazing, incidentally, like there's one of the new characters looks like she stepped right out of Dragon Ball Z, and there was this hell of a DBZ-ish fight, and
whereas Adventure Time's reference from this kind of culture has a lot more to do with Western RPGs and notions of
alignment.
Yeah, alignment, leveling up. Kind of dungeon mastering, like just a boundless world to explore that will kind of procedurally generate it itself as you move further and further out.
Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like more Western animation, more Japanese animation as well from the two of them. They complement each other very well.
Yeah.
You should watch both.
Right.
Oh, lordy.
But, yeah, what I was trying to say before is that just for me, and maybe there's some unfortunate gender coding to this, but just for me, I have difficulty engaging with a thing whose main objective is feelings.
Yeah. I think that's totally legit. Like, we've had this thing where we've been watching, me and Nick and Josh have been watching cartoons for the last couple of days, and it's like it is very clear that we all react to very different things in cartoons, and I'm right, and they all have their hang-ups.
Yeah, of course,
clearly, but except of course not. Except I have my hang-ups as well, and there's a reason, for example, that stop turning on the fucking radio.
God, I hope I didn't actually make music play and we don't know because the sound's off.
Well, losing the audio track from the actual trucks
would be
not be the worst thing that happened. Yeah. We'd lose our aleatoric legitimacy.
You were saying about your hang-ups.
Lose our vibe. Like I made Josh watch like an episode of Gravity Falls earlier.
Didn't like it.
Josh, nothing there for Josh to hang on to. I totally dug it. I don't totally dig it, actually. I don't think it's as interesting, but it's clear that it's not as formally innovative, which is what we're after. And if I was like, I can't say that Gravity Falls is a bad show because it's, a lot of love and a lot of density, of references, a lot of good jokes go into it. It's a really good world, blah, 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 blah. But neither Josh nor I are ever going to be like in the fandom for Gravity Falls because it's very traditional. And so blind spots, like what's good, what's worth our attention. We don't pretend to be arbiters of anything.
No.
We like avant-garde shit. We like weird shit, and we like cartoons.
And Isaac likes cartoons.
I like cartoons, and so like I'll watch all of this.
And he shows me the good ones, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's good. Mm-hmm. Mostly, except for Gravity Falls.
Yeah.
48 minutes left. What's
well?
what's oh my God! Someone has joined our stream. Someone is watching us do this.
Are you nuts?
Who's this? It's just somebody. Our microphone isn't on. They just wanted to watch us play trucks.
Hey, this is so bizarre.
Well, tune in next Friday for the first trucks stream.
We've been discussing doing that for ages, and if not for the fact that absolutely nobody would watch, it would be totally cool.
Right, nobody watches it even when we say watch it on your own time.
Yeah,
but it's possible that people would watch it if we say now's your only chance.
Wow, what a thought!
It's a thought.
Here's your chance to hang out with Josh and Isaac. I bet I can get a bunch of people to come and join in. Once, maybe not twice.
No,
but anyway, so quick roundup from what I'm talking about. Rebecca Sugar from Steven Universe used to have a webcomic. Pug Davis, Ian Jones-Quartey from Steven Universe used to have a webcomic. Pendleton Ward used to have a webcomic. Steve Wolfhard and Jesse Moynihan, my two favorite boarders from Adventure Time, used to have webcomics. Still do. I mean, all of the stuff's still online except for Pug Davis, which is I think just print based at this point.
Yeah.
In Gravity Falls, one of the main boarders on the show is Matt Chapman, who was the co-creator and voice of Homestar Runner. One of the reasons why it's such a good moment for animation right now is that the webcomic community fostered a whole lot of amazing people, and they hung on to each other and brought each other on board when it came time for them to step up to the big leagues. And we are really fortunate that happened.
It's cool to see cool people get to do more cool work.
Yeah.
Here's the thought. I'd like to spend a moment interrogating further why it is that things that are feelings focused don't stick to me as well.
Oh, yeah, and
or
it's
at least not in a way that I like. They do stick to me. That's the fact.
But you're other than that, you're a heartless cyborg.
It's like they do that thing to my feelings, and then I feel awful about it afterwards. And then after that's over, here, unpack this with me.
Will do.
I'm left feeling like, oh my God, my engines don't like the low gears. I'm left feeling like there's after I've processed all that and kind of returned myself to normal.
Our viewer went away.
Well, he wasn't listening.
Yeah.
After all that, and after we've returned to I've returned myself to normal, I'm not left with anything that I can use or even really hold on to.
Yeah. I see that. Viewing these, we review these things as material in some way.
Yeah.
That we can use for discussion, for learning about ourselves, ?
Well, yeah, or about the culture, although Steven Universe is good for that. But
see, I mean, we haven't even sadly touched on what an incredibly Tumblr friendly queer,
so much good gender
shit,
stuff in that show.
Yeah, it's just
but not it doesn't it is good in that regard, but not because it introduces me to new ideas about it exactly.
Right. No, it's just lovely to see these ideas that we are familiar with get this kind of airing.
Yeah.
New ideas is a tall order for just about anything, isn't it?
Yeah, but it is my favorite stuff does that, or at least I've never quite seen that before, or I've never even considered that before, even if it decodes into an idea that I'm familiar with.
Right.
Okay, this is a hard parking job.
Mm-hmm. We got stuff to say. We got stuff to say. Park slowly.
I wanna just disclaim that what I'm talking about right now, this lack that I am talking about in Steven Universe and things like it, isn't a criticism. It's if this wasn't already clear enough, this is a hang-up of mine.
Right.
But
it also maps onto the kid stuff versus grown-up stuff.
Yeah.
Dichotomy we're talking about. One of the reasons why we value something like The Wire.
Yeah.
Or Breaking Bad is not just because it's formally interesting, but because it purports to say important things about the state of our lives.
Right. whether or not it's important, like interpreting what it's saying is, it's eloquent enough that god damn it, that process is I guess it somehow forces you to confront the ideas more clearly. Am I making sense?
Yeah. It's about. I think, and this is a thing that's common in a lot of good art, is that it's about.
Just god damn it! Keep talking.
It's about like sneaking pills into your dog's food. It's about formulating ideas that you're probably already familiar with on some level in such a way that they will somehow get past the barrier between your thinky brain and your psyche,
right,
and implant themselves.
Right, that's what I like.
You're right, and I think that it's entirely fair to say that there are different media who will do that for different people because their membranes are permeable to different stuff.
Yes, good. Okay, at the end of this Strux episode, we've uncovered why people like things.
That was a relatively complicated way of saying that. This isn't even going to count.
No, but we're close now.
We are. You can do it. Just level out.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I guess what I've kind of learned about myself from this conversation is that the way things get between my conscious mind and my unconscious mind is through pithy ideas that I can sum up.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. It's kind of slightly counterintuitive for me, but I'm definitely there with you. For my part, I think that like my generalized love of cartoons definitely has. It would be hypocritical and counterproductive to the conversation to deny that there is a thing about me that is just super childish. And I like watching cartoons.
Right.
And because I'm also a grown-up, I have tended to seek out cartoons which are interesting to my grown-up brain as well.
Yeah.
But satisfactory. We really need to step up our game. But it's not. It's almost not the be-all and end-all for me. I just like cartoons.
Yeah.
Well, folks, we got there in the end.
Yeah. Leave us a comment, like and subscribe. Tell your friends.
And come by on Friday next Friday when we're gonna do the big truck stream on Twitch.
The truck stream is not real.
It is real.